This is the beautiful waterfront in Cape Town, South Africa, which may be by far the most touristy spot in the city, which makes sense. There's a lot of very touristy stuff to do around here. It's hot. It's well hot. Might be too hot. But I'm not just here to play Pokemon Go with skin melanoma. I want to buy the worst gaming system in South Africa. And this may be a good place to do it because of the infamous Incredible Connections. Now, before we go to the South African institution of suffering that is Incredible Connections to go buy a gaming PC, I thought we'd have a look at a more realistic representation of where the average South African would be buying a gaming PC. Because you really shouldn't be going into Incredible Connections, you're probably buying them online if you live in the country. So I'm going to use a website called Wootware as an example of the prices in the country. And when I went on to Wootware, I was pleasantly surprised by the pricing here because it's not nearly as bad as I remember. For most of the components, the pricing is honestly kind of in line with what you'd get in the United States. And unlike the really stupid system in the United States, where they don't include the tax in the price you see all over the website, they actually have tax included in the pricing here, so it may look a little bit higher on initial inspection, but tax is included, which is good. We're looking at examples of a whole bunch of different types of components, from storage, CPUs, down to graphics cards. These prices are way closer than I was expecting. Monitors are maybe a little bit more expensive here than they are in the United States, and that's about it. The rest of it was pretty comparable. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that on Wootware's website, it does say that pretty much all of this stuff is on sale, but I did look a month ago and it was all on sale and it's still on sale. So I think they do that thing where they pretend things are on sale to make you think that you're getting a good deal. But yeah, this is way better than I remember it being. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that for the average South African, spending $1,000 on PC components is a lot harder than it is for the average American. And I think the easiest way to quantify this difference is by using GDP per person, which in South Africa is 6,253, which $1,000 is a huge percentage of that. Whereas in the United States, the median GDP per person is 81,695. That's more than 10 times as much, so it's more than 10 times as expensive comparatively to buy a PC here, I guess is... Oh, hiccup. So with that, let's go back to the waterfront and buy a terrible PC for as little money as we can find. So interestingly, we don't have Apple stores here, we just have premium resellers called iStore. But we didn't come all this way for premium garbage, we came for incredible garbage. Now, the easiest way to describe Incredible Connections is it's essentially just South African Best Buy if it was run by Scrooge McDuck. Its widespread reputation for terrible pricing and customer service has earned it some loving nicknames like Incredible Corruption or Incredible Erection. But at the end of the day, it's a place where a lot of people end up buying their TVs and laptops. But is their pricing really that bad? Well, in terms of TVs, it's difficult to tell because a lot of these brands you don't get in the US. And if you want an OLED, you can get a 55-inch and save a whopping R0. But 29,000 Rand is about the same that TV costs in America, so that's pretty good. But it just feels like a lot more because of what 29,000 Rand represents in terms of cost of living. Now again, with normal laptops, there's a bunch of SKU variants, but prices seem more or less in line with the United States. It's when the manufacturers tack gaming onto the laptop's name that my butthole starts to pucker. 45,000 Rand for a laptop with a 4060 in it is absurd, even when compared to the US price. So I guess that's why gamers dry heave at the mention of Incredible Connections. But at least they've got some sim racing stuff, I guess. Hey, there's still a PS4 here, although I don't see pricing for it. That's a shame. Now luckily, in terms of desktop gaming systems, Incredible Connections doesn't just have a bunch of Acer crap boxes. They use systems by an SI pre-built manufacturer called PC Builder. And aside from some labeling confusion and a system with a single stick of RAM, On the surface, these systems seem a bit better than I was expecting, although the gamer tax does very much creep in with the higher end versions. This one's got a nice tractor noise guy. So I decided to buy the cheapest one they had. And because Incredible Connections doesn't have any individual PC components, I had to go to a different mall at a shop called Computer Mania, which actually had a reasonable collection of PC components in stock so that I could buy some upgrades for our Incredible Connections system. Now, like I said, this is the cheapest system that they had by quite a margin. It was almost half the price of the next system up. And that's because it doesn't come with a dedicated graphics card. But I did find a pretty affordable dedicated graphics card that we're going to upgrade it with a bit later. Now, the specs are honestly not that terrible. I mean, the thing that I'm the most excited about is the 16 gig kit of DDR4. Although, I'm curious to see what the power supply situation is like, because it says it's a PC builder power supply, so it may be quite difficult to get information on that, but we'll figure it out. Alright, on the top we get a little manual with it, which is very useful. Oh, okay, so it seems like they stress test the system using 3D Mark, which is pretty cool. On this page, they give you information about the exorcism that you need to do after you set it up, how to unbox it, how to unwrap all of this stuff. That's useful. This is a nice presentation. And then you also get some useful accessories like this USB to Wi-Fi dongle, some leftover motherboard accessories, and you even get your motherboard's quick start guide, which is pretty funny. And of course, a chunky South African power connector. Whoa, straight off the bat, there's a whole bunch of good stuff going on. Look at all that ventilation on the front with 3 fans sucking air in, and then we've got an exhaust on the back. There's some dated but useful I/O on the front. Ooh, although the rear I/O is about as modest as an Amish wet ankle competition. There's not a lot going on here. I mean, this is an AM4 motherboard. I didn't know that you got AM4 with this kind of I/O. Although at least you do have USB 3, so it's not a complete train smash. And then another interesting thing about the back is that the power supply seems to just support 220 volts, which is pretty weird, and it does mean that if you want to take this to a different country, you may have some problems. And in the interior, aside from the rental car spec motherboard, which has a very helpful warning to not eat the motherboard battery on it, this is a very neatly put together little system. The cable management is good. We've got our dual channel RAM with our stock AMD cooler, which is going to be enough for our 5600 GT, especially considering all the airflow we've got going. And then obviously under that warning, we have our option to upgrade the graphics card, which we will do later on. But yeah, some actual care went into assembling this system, which is really nice to see. And then down here, we've got a little window giving us a look at the power supply we've got in here. And those specs make sense for a 550 watt power supply, but I wonder who the OEM is that makes this, because I'm pretty sure that PC Builder isn't making their own power supplies. Let's open the back and see if we can get a bit more information about it. Oh, that's a really nice touch. On the back panel, there's a whole bunch of information about the assembly of the system. It shows here that they ran PC Mark for 13 whole minutes. We do have some scores here for that. They tell you who the PC tech is, so you know whose house to attack when your system catches on fire. Yeah, that's a useful touch. Oh, they even tell you that they've got XMPs enabled, but this is without a CPU overclock. That's cool, I like that. And then on the back, we've got some cable management that doesn't look like the result of a frontal lobotomy, which is good. We also get a proper fan connector, and not just a Molex chain like you see on a bunch of other cheap systems off like Amazon. Although, down here is a little bit of a mess, so it's gonna be a bit annoying for us to get to the supplemental power for the graphics card, assuming that even exists in here. Let me see. Oh, yeah, that's hiding under there, but I guess that's later's problem. I have to say, I am pleasantly surprised at the standard of thing we could buy at Incredible Connections. So let's put the side panels back on and see how it runs before we try upgrade it a bit. Oh, what? Their Windows 11 install actually lets you set up without internet without having to use the hack workaround. Okay, best pre-built ever. And other than that, venereal disease-wise, we're pretty good. In fact, Norton isn't even pre-installed on this system. They just give you the tools to download it if you're a granny. Wow, I am legitimately blown away. Okay, so with that, I need to go download some games on South African Wi-Fi because, well, I forgot my game drive like an idiot. So that's going to take a while, which means I'm going to go have lunch while that happens, and then we'll test the system. But the Wi-Fi was such a dumpster fire that when I came back from lunch over an hour later, Steam hadn't even finished updating yet. Oh, that's not good. I'm gonna have to make a different plan here. Okay, well, I found some Ethernet, and now it's going way faster. I mean, that's not great, but it's definitely a lot better than before. Okay, well, it is now the next day, and I managed to download 3 games overnight with our North Korean internet. So let's see how it runs Counter-Strike 2. Ooh, that's not ideal. We've got some activate Windows action going down. Okay, so at 1080p low settings, we're getting about 80 frames per second. It's not super snappy, but it's definitely playable. Like, this is, a usable experience, aside from the occasional pretty big stutter. And then because we've got a proper RAM configuration in here, which we usually don't get with iGPU-based systems, look at that GPU utilization. Very good. It's super usable. And then because our CPU isn't doing much, we should get a lot more performance when we drop a graphics card in here. Ooh, okay. Doom Eternal at 1080p medium is starting to kick our teeth in a little bit here. 30 frames per second is not great for this game, but yeah, I'd say this is just about usable, although you would very much want a graphics card to play this game. And then in terms of temperatures, we're sitting around 65 degrees Celsius with 45-ish watts of power draw, which is pretty impressive considering that I'm sitting in a sauna at the moment. Now, this is not what I'd call a playable gaming result, but at 1080p Cyberpunk with a little iGPU, this is pretty impressive, especially considering that we have the option to turn on some Fidelity FX, which I feel like there's no shame in doing with an iGPU. It's over 25 now. This is like peak gaming experience back in 2005. It's not too bad. Although our CPU temperature has gone up a lot. We've hit 81 degrees Celsius now that there's more of a load on the CPU. Oh, that doesn't bode amazingly for our GPU test, which we're gonna do now. So now that we've seen how the little system performs with its iGPU, which is honestly admirable considering the condition, but I think it's time to drop a graphics card in here, which I got from Computer Mania. I ended up buying an RTX 3050. Now, the eagle-eyed of you would have noticed that this is a 6GB version of the RTX 3050, which is but a vivisected shadow of its former 8GB self, and I guess that helps explain why it cost a bit less than a GTX 1650 in the shop. But either way, it'll perform a lot better than our iGPU. Oh, it doesn't need supplemental power. That's huge, because it means I don't have to go dig through Medusa's hair in that case to get some power for this graphics card. And with this 3050, it puts our total at 13,000 Rand for the system, which is way better than the options we could get at Incredible Connections with a graphics card. But with that, let's drop it in. Oh no, this case has the twisty out rear PCIe covers, hopefully. It's not as treacherous to get out as that one Deepcool case. Ah, there we go. There we go. You want to pull it out to the outside so that you don't accidentally damage your motherboard. Holy, that's a lot more performance. I mean, that is always what happens when you drop a dedicated graphics card into a system like this, but it's a lot more playable. I really like these affordable iGPU systems because the fact that you can get up and running with a system and then drop a graphics card in later down the line, it's just such a good option. Not only do we almost get 3 times the frame rates dropping the graphics card in there, but it also eliminated that pesky stutter I was getting with the iGPU. But in return, we get some higher temperatures, which could at least partially be down to the Thai prison cell temperatures I was gaming in. Doom Eternal, if anything, was even happier with the graphics card, giving us almost a 4x jump in frame rate. And with this configuration, the game feels really good, hovering around 120 frames per second, but I was kind of expecting more. I guess I keep forgetting how much of a loser the 3056 gig really is. And then finally, Cyberpunk becomes actually playable, which is a huge improvement, and in a strange twist of fate, we actually lose some CPU temperature due to lower power draw, which is interesting considering the much higher frame rate. And with that, despite my decades of built-up prejudice against incredible connections, apparently the worst pre-built you can buy from them isn't nearly as bad as I would have expected. Although, to be fair, I was expecting it to immediately inject a bunch of bubonic plague into my eyeballs, so I guess it's not a high bar to clear. So with that, thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and until the next one, bye bye.